Now, in this second video, we're going to explore the multi-track window. And for that, you'll see I click on multi-track, and it will ask me to create a new session. Now, I'm going to create this new session on my desktop. So first, I'll browse here. You see I'm right here on the desktop. If I weren't, I would find it. I choose it. I'll name it Audition Test. And you know, by default, you'll have this selected as none here. I'll ask you to go through this list and find the podcast one, which will create a template of a sample rate of 44,100, which is basically um, CD quality. Bit depth is 16, which is not high. Usually, I mean, you could have much higher bit rate, depth up to 32. Um, and you're gonna master it in stereo. Don't worry about these things. With the minute you select podcast, is gonna go automatically to the settings that we want for your audio in the podcast. And then I'm gonna click OK, and you will see that there's gonna be a few windows that appear here, right? These windows are the ones that you're gonna be using to place your audio tracks. You will see that if I move my cursor up and down here, it's gonna go between um, this different tracks that are called host, interview, sound effects, music bed, and then the master. The master is where all these tracks combined are gonna converge, and here you're gonna have basically your finished session. I'm gonna bring oh, one more thing. Like if I do the same thing, like if I zoom in and out in this part of your of the window, see that the tracks are gonna enhance. But let me bring this thing. So I'm gonna put the interview here, and I can place it wherever I want. Usually I would place it at the top of the of my window. I'm gonna put the music bed here, where it says music bed. You see that this is a much shorter track. So you see here the duration. This is the interview is like 16 minutes or more. And then I'm gonna put the natural sound in the sound effects. Again, my natural sounds are way shorter than the entire duration of the interview. Host, if we needed to do any voiceovers, we could record them directly here. But for now, and we are we're kind of trying to keep, as we mentioned in class, we're going to try to keep this as as an audio postcard. Now, if I played this um, tracks, you're not going to hear anything because of my settings, but you will see that everything is playing through the master. There's volume issues here. This is peaking at -3, almost sometimes cracking at 0. It should be in the yellow area. So I'm going to have to work with volumes of the general track. I'm going to have to reduce the duration of the interview, which will imply that I have to slice it and crop it and move, etc., etc. But we'll do this in a minute. Now, you can actually see a number of things here. First, well, this little window here at the top. Let's see that I move this around. Sorry, I should not put it there. Let's move it around. You will see that it moved here. So let me do one thing. So I'm going to use the first tool, razor. I'm going to select a clip here, and with the razor, I'm going to cut it. As I mentioned in the previous video, cutting in your multi-track session doesn't destroy the original file, which means that I can retrieve whatever I cut. So if I use now the selection tool after cutting, I can select that part of the interview, and let's say that I want to get rid of it. I just press delete. If I want to retrieve some parts of that interview, I just go to this time selection tool, and I can actually enhance it and bring it back or reduce it, right? Okay, and let me move this one here, right? And you will see that everything that I do is replicated in this little window at the top, and I can basically zoom in to a point where I want, or zoom out, or move it to find the spot in my timeline. I'm going to move this back to the beginning. Now, we saw a couple of tools already. We saw the slice tool, the razor. We had the time selection tool, which actually allows us to select chunks of this interview, perhaps, or parts of your music bed. And if you want to, let's say, delete them. So I created two separate tracks. I'm going to delete a little bit part here. The move tool, so you can actually move different your interview to different moments, and then your tracks. I mean, here you can, if since all of your tracks are stereo, you can actually play around with the stereo, um, panning to the left or to the right. So that means that, for instance, this track is gonna be slightly louder on the left than on the right, or you could actually basically reset it to 0, and it will be in the dead center. And you can actually play with the volume of your tracks directly from here with this dial to the left and to the right, or again put it back in 0. Now, if there's a way to tell whether the tracks are too loud or not. For instance, you can actually mute everything else. This is the mute button, and when you play it, you will hear the volume of just that one track. Okay. You can actually play this track solo too, and none of the other tracks will be heard. If you select all of the tracks at the same time and you move your cursor to where the 3 of them are playing, you'll see the volume of the 3 tracks replicated and aggregated here at the bottom. Okay, so we covered a few operations here, and I'm going to cover a few more in our